Hi, Dr. Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Linda?
I am doing great. I am so excited for today.
I am too. I feel like we've been talking about it for such a long time now. It's like, it's here. So
I know. And I am so looking forward for you and I to kind of like sit next to each other again and be in the same room together.
Yes, it has been way too long since we have been actually
right.
Looking forward to it for sure.
Well, I know that, we're already starting to stream on Facebook. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody. We've kind of logged in a little early so that people have a chance to log in, get their alerts. So I'm excited to be here with Dr. Cindy today. And, her and I have worked together for a long time, even though we are really miles apart because today I'm in the Chicagoland area and you're in California. So there is no excuses that our California people can't be online right now, right?
That's right. It's bright and early and it's a beautiful day out here. So it's a good day to do some Facebook Live.
Yeah. So how is California doing? I heard that there's, bad drought again and water shortages. Are everybody okay by you?
We're doing okay so far. Fingers crossed. It's, always a little scary when there's a drought in California, but we're hanging in there and being good stewards of electricity and things like that to try to try to counteract. But everything is good. We're good. Family's healthy. How about you guys?
We are good. Our weather has been phenomenal here in the Midwest. So, but I will say it has been dry too. So I think everybody is suffering from a dry spring, and I worry about trees and things like that.
Yes, agreed. It's funny because we are having an unbelievable day today out here. It's about 67 degrees already in the city, which is a bit of a treat if you've ever been to San Francisco, because we're kind of 55 and foggy is our thing. So
right.
It is a proper summer day here today. So it's super fun.
Hey, so if some of you have already logged in, we haven't really started yet. We're just coming on early so that we can make sure everything kind of works. So if, you all want to kind of put in Facebook Live or in your chat box, where you're viewing from geographically. So we know where all our peeps are coming from today. So please put that in. I'd love to get some shout outs to some of the people that are already on, including our dear friends at Bo Digital who are helping us produce this Facebook Live session. And I know, Dr. Cindy, you know those folks very well, too.
I do. Big fans of Wayne and his amazing team over there. So thank you guys so much for helping produce today. We appreciate that.
Definitely. And I know you and I were talking before we went live, but I am so excited to get back out. I mean, I had my very first get on a plane work trip a couple weeks ago. And I swear, I have to retrain my travel muscle memory.
Yeah, it's so funny because I had my first trip recently as well. And I forgot how to pack. And I'm the girl that packs in 10 minutes. It's I take this and this suit and that suit and these pairs of shoes. And it literally took me forever because I was just trying to remember, how do I do this and what doesn't wrinkle? And
right. Yeah, no, I agree because I used to be able to pack for a week and one little tiny carry-on.
Yes.
And it's I actually forgot stuff on the trip. I better retrain myself. So welcome Nancy Brady, welcome Lori and Donna Ray from FNF, Lisa Epps, welcome you all.
Guys.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We're going to have a good conversation today. And I'm going to try my best, Dr. Cindy, to make sure I remember that we're on Facebook Live with the audience because I can, go off in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, we're never short on conversation between the two of us. So
no, not at all.
The Bo Digital team might need to rein us in.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of people logging in. That's cool. And, just so everybody knows, we are here early. We're not going to get started for at least a couple minutes, get everybody to log in. I know many of you just liked our page so that you may be getting alerts on your phone. So we're giving everybody time to kind of log in. So we don't want to miss a thing that Dr. Cindy has to say.
We only have 5 hours, right? No.
Yeah, I think so. Isn't this a 5-part series?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I do feel like we could talk forever. What you were saying, like, we're so excited to get back out and see people. And that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most is fall. It seems like conference season is going to be happening in person. And I am thrilled to, it's different, you know, when you have the energy of the room and just actually getting to see people and, you know, hug people.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking at the same time, though, because, you know, there are still areas that have some different rules, but, you know, still, it's going to be different. I'm going to probably be very nervous the first time I'm on stage, you know, so I'm going to have to make sure that you're there so that we can help each other out.
I'll do the wave in the back for you. I got you.
Yeah, welcome Mandy Evans and Joanna Payne and Maria Del Carmen, Valencia, Joshua Williams. I'm just trying to look to see who's chiming in. Give us a shout out where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know. I know it's the top of the hour and we're going to get started in like a minute or two. I want to give everybody a chance to log in. And just so you know, if you know, some of your colleagues couldn't tune in, which we completely understand because our industry is busy, which is amazing. But we will also talk about, you know, the challenges of having a busy time in our businesses. Hey, Matt McBride, great to see that you're on. Maureen Crowley, thanks for coming on. But there's a lot of things. Oh, Christy Kaufman's on, and my new best friend, Elizabeth Berg, is on. But no, being so busy, we kind of take our eyes off the ball in other areas. At least we do that in business, and I know I've done that even in my own personal life.
For sure. It's you know, it's juggling all the things, right? And so as we do get back to sort of our old routines, looking at sort of the things that have changed and maybe some of the stuff we can take with us that we learned. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, so this is all going to be recorded. So we will definitely share this not only with our colleagues, but with our friends. We'll keep a recording on our Facebook page. So you'll be able to link to it or, you know, send friends, colleagues, customers, title agents, realtors, whoever you want a link to this recording. Hopefully you'll find it valuable and hopefully you'll take a nugget or two out of this discussion. So what do you think? Should we get started? It's a minute after. I want to be very cognizant and of everybody's very valuable time and appreciate them coming on time. So what do you think, Dr. Cindy? Should we?
I say let's go for it. Yeah.
Roll? All right.
Let's do it.
So number one, if you do have questions or anything, please put them in the chat box or in your Facebook Live session, and those will be fed over to myself and I can address those with Dr. Cindy, either during or maybe we'll just wait to the very end for some Q&A. We'll kind of, feel it out, right, Dr. Cindy?
Works for me.
All right, great. So, hi all, my name is Linda Grahovic and I am with the F&F family of companies, now ranked 288 on the Fortune 500 list for 2021. How exciting. I am the National Agency Director of Education and Marketing Strategy, and I am simply your host for this Facebook Live offering. Dr. Cindy is truly the main event right here. So, who is Dr. Cindy? For the few of you that do not know, Dr. Cindy is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. Dr. Cindy is the CEO of Orange Leaf Consulting. She is a very proud and very good leader of the American Land Title Association homeowner outreach program, which focuses on consumer education. And I have the very honor to also be a leader with Dr. Cindy, and we've been with that program since it first started. She is also an Alta member and committee member, which is very important because we always want to be part of our trade associations, whether national or local. And the committee she's on include HOP, which is that Homeowner Outreach Program, and the Education Committee, along with myself as well. Dr. Cindy presents at so many industry functions. She did it all virtually last year, but I think you're going to see the white of her eyes this year, right? And she's been doing it for 10 years. I cannot believe that we've known you for 10 years. And I'm so honored to have shared a few stages with you. Your passion is definitely helping the title industry as well as, realtors, individuals, lenders, attorneys to grow and thrive, no matter the business or no matter the size. She is also a friend of F&F family of companies, and certainly a friend of mine. So why did we bring Dr. Cindy here? Well, there's really a huge opportunity for growth right now, right? Both personally and professionally. Many of us need to get our mojo back, maybe in a new creative way, or maybe, what do you think? Do we create a new one or something? Kind of reevaluate what we did and how we did it, not only last year, but the year before. Maybe there's a good melding of those things that we do out in the field. And many times we know what to do, but that execution of the how, that is so hard. I mean, sometimes it takes somebody kind of poking me. Sometimes it takes, me kind of reestablishing in my mind the how. And boy, we had to really learn different hows last year, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we are talking with Dr. Cindy about how to build on our strengths and use this time to, reach our personal and our professional goals. This is, not only for your company or your office, but it's also about you. So we want to focus really about you and your personal goals, which of course will lend itself to family goals and company goals and title universe goals, right?
Nice. I like it.
So, Dr. Cindy, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this Facebook Live series, and it's so good to see you, even if it is virtually. I'll take it because it's been a really long time. So I'm really thrilled to be here just to talk about some of these pieces, because so much has changed in the last year, and I think we've changed whether we realize it or not. And now is the time to kind of embrace that disruption that we've gone through and take a bit of an honest inventory and think, okay, here's the stuff that I learned that I need to be using going forward. Here's stuff that maybe isn't going to serve me going forward, or even maybe there's stuff I used to do that I don't necessarily need to go back to. So this is something we're doing with a lot of our clients right now. And so I'm super excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, that is great. We're going to touch on a lot of different things. Our experience in the past year has changed us, right? Whether, we noticed it, whether we didn't notice it, so now is the time to, like you said, embrace that disruption. So when we asked Dr. Cindy to do this with us, well, I shouldn't say with us, to do this for us, right? We wanted to talk about some of the lessons that we learned. So can you talk about some of those lessons? I mean, with all this disruption going on, how do we take those lessons and really utilize it for our going forward?
I mean, the first thing that I think we have to do is acknowledge that our industry not only survived, but we've been thriving through this. I mean, just the innovation in and of itself is astounding. There were drive-through closings, there were remote closings. I mean, all of these things that we did, and honestly, on a dime, it was, everything was open, then everything was closed. A lot of our clients never even skipped a beat. And there's a lot to be said for that, but it also shows how adaptable we are as an industry and how much we can do when kind of pushed to that space. But what I also want us to be able to do is look at, okay, we were pushed into that, but what did we learn from it and what can we still use? And it's funny, there was a meme going around early, last year, year before last, actually, like right at the beginning of all the disruption. And it said something like, who's responsible for technology innovation in your organization, CTO, COO, or pandemic? And it was like, oh. But I think it's a magical thing that happened around our own innovation. And so that's what I want us to kind of look at is, what did we learn? What were those lessons? And then what do we want to do going forward? Because we're still in a busy season. I mean, not just the summer, but most of our clients haven't come up for air yet. So looking at how do we want 2022, 2023, 2025 to go? And then let's use all those pieces that we've brought along in the last year.
Yeah. And, some of those lessons we can really look at, not only the ones we learned in our business, being able to, be agile in how we did the closings, how we made things work, because with most states, we were essential. But I'm thinking even in my own personal life, how agile I became. And I wanted to make things work. Like I couldn't see my family. So I would think of very innovative ways to make it work because I wanted it so badly. In the dead of winter, getting heaters and putting them into our screen room and, cooking 3 turkeys instead of 1 and, doing outdoor brunch. And, so if there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to see my family so bad, even though we had to stay 6 feet apart and they couldn't come inside my house, but I made it work because I wanted it so bad, right? So how do we kind of garner that passion and that drive in our businesses?
Well, I think the first thing is, what is it that you want so bad, right? We have to start with that sort of idea of where is it that we actually want to go? What is it that we're striving for? And, let's face it, we grow business. So our clients, we're talking about growth and what that's going to continue to look like. But maybe there's some personal or professional development for folks who are listening in today. And maybe it's you want to get better at X, or you want to stretch into this part of your career, or maybe you want to elevate and go into a leadership role. So it's looking at what that thing is that you're desiring. And then let's create a way to get you there. And I think that's the piece where I'm talking about kind of taking that honest inventory of what's going on. What did we learn in all of those pieces? But then not getting back just on that regular track. And we're in this, I call it the rubber band effect, but it's easy to snap back to where we were. The rubber band has this shape and we stretched last year, but unless we continue to stretch, we're going to snap back. So looking at, okay, I stretched, I liked this piece, I liked this innovation, I think this was good, but how is that going to serve you to get closer to where you want to go personally and professionally?
But you said a really nasty 4-letter word there, Cindy. You said a word, PLAN. I have no time to plan, but we need to take the time, right? Because what we learned from being in a different atmosphere, there's certain words we're not going to mention today, right? And you and I said we're not going to mention a few words, but as we start to open up, what should we hold on to and what should we let go of?
Yeah, but that takes planning, right? And that 4-letter word, I get it. And, anybody that never has seen me or worked with us knows I like to plan. I'm that girl. But I think you have to, because otherwise it is going to snap right back. And it's human nature. And you had said, at the beginning we were chit-chatting and we were talking about the, things that we do on a regular basis. It's a recalibration moment is what we're talking about. And in order to recalibrate, we have to stop and look. One of the easiest things to look at is the way sales changed over the last year. Now, granted, I'm the sales gal, of course, but when you think about that, everybody was virtually selling. We were still connecting with our customers. We were still, creating relationships, developing new relationships. Is that just going to go by the wayside now that we can get back out and see people in person? I hope not. because for my managers and owners that are listening in, your ROI went up, your expenses went down, you were able to reach an audience probably that you actually couldn't have reached before. So those are pieces where you have to stop and take that inventory, and that inventory is part of that planning process. And so I think you sit and go, okay, where do I want to go? And I'm not saying you have to sit down and do a 15-page plan. I mean, my gosh, nobody's ever going to do that. And you're not going to look at it. But jot a few things down of what you're trying to accomplish. I think that's hugely important.
You know, I love that word recalibration. And for those of you that are live with us, you know, kind of tell us in the chat box or in our Facebook Live session, you know, what have you recalibrated, or have you not thought about it yet? Because to your point, Dr. Cindy, the rubber band, I talked about muscle memory and traveling, right? Yeah. So what I was saying is that I'm trying to get back to what I was and how I was, right? Trying to recreate that muscle memory. But is that really what I want to do? You know, because if you were that person that was, you know, and I'm just going to equate it to my job, everybody else has to equate it to their job, but, you know, maybe you were doing this too. I was traveling 3 weeks out of the month. And is that really where I want to be now?
Yeah.
You know, is that going to be the best use of my time going forward? Did I learn a lesson? Should I rethink? Should I replan? Should I recalibrate? Because the ROI may go down as my expenses go up.
Yeah.
And is that the best use of my time, being on a plane, being on a tarmac, things like that? For some of our other businesses, is it certain time that you're out in the field? Is it different time that you should be doing in the field? You know, do you want to go back to running yourself down all over town, whether it's on a plane or in a car or somewhere in between, right?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because it is. It's like, it's all about the ROI. And that's the whole reason to plan, right? is to increase your ROI. So if you look at planning from that angle and you take that sort of moment to look at it, this is also about avoiding peaks and valleys in your business. You know, that's part of the reason we end up with this, is because lack of planning. Yes, we can blame market. Yes, we can blame all these other things. But if you stop and look at it, if you're on a trajectory, you can stay the course if you know the plan and you know the levers to pull along that way. And one of the other things that you said that I think is really important is, you know, with travel, I was with you. I was on the road every week except the last week of the month, because y'all don't want to talk to us at the last week of the month. So that was the approach there too. But looking at how many more people we're able to reach through this medium and how many new people we're able to help by doing it virtually. And so it's also based on your mission. What is your mission? If your mission is to go back and just see those people, great. But if your mission is to reach more customers and more people and make a larger impact, you got to switch the plan. And it's that hybrid approach that I think we have to embrace right now. It's really looking at what we learned, what we liked from before. And we're not saying you can't get in your car and go visit people. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But making sure that's the best use of your time. And another piece of the plan, and this is something we're working with our clients on, is the recalibration of customer expectations as well. Because
true, very true.
We had kind of trained them that we would, you know, they say jump and we say how high in a lot of cases. And that was the way this industry was built. This industry is built on relationships, built on handshakes. We want to take care of people. We're caretakers. But looking at different ways to take care of them and different ways to connect with them, this is a chance to recalibrate and not just snap right back. And I think that's a true opportunity. And if we don't take it, the window's going to close. I mean, honestly, I would say if you're not doing the planning piece and implementing it before the end of this year, rubber band snap back already.
Right. So, but can you tell us, you know, what this hybrid could possibly look like?
Yeah, it depends on the role, depends on your organization, and it depends on if it's you individually, right? We're talking a lot about the professional today, like you as the individual. So looking at what are the things that you want to change. So maybe let's use sales. Maybe you were out visiting customers on a daily basis. Is that still the best return on your time invested? Should you be doing more online? Should you be doing more Zoom meetings versus sitting in, the car in traffic for 3 hours in downtown Chicago? So it's examining those pieces, but also honoring the stuff that we like. And I think that's the other thing is there's stuff that I like. I like getting in front of an audience and being on an airplane sometimes. Do I want to do it every single day of my life? No, but I like that.
And that's one of your strengths.
Oh, thank you.
So, and doesn't that kind of go hand in hand? You want to do things that you like. You want to make sure you're doing things that are effective for yourself and your company. But then you also want to embrace your strengths.
And that's one of the other things that you said, you were being really innovative even with your family last year and doing outside brunches. You learned your party planner muscle was very strong during this last 16 months. So recognizing some of those things, and I do agree, it's about kind of building up those strengths. And so part of your plan, and I just have to say this because, Dr. Cindy, I have to give homework, but if you haven't done your own SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, that's a good place to start on that plan. And I'm not saying get a giant whiteboard and 1,000 Post-its. Think about it on a walk or a run and just go through this and go, oh, this is the inventory she's talking about. This is what I need to do so that you know where to build on those strengths. Because if you don't have that plan, it's really hard to look for the opportunities to elevate and get you closer to your goal. But I think
sometimes you just have to write it down.
Well, I would.
Because if it's maybe with some people, depending on how you can absorb, but sometimes if it's in front of you and you see it every day, then you're going to gravitate to that next goal, or you're going to try to fix that weakness, or you're going to make sure that your day starts with the weakness and it ends on your strengths, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is we're super busy. That's never going to stop. It's very funny because I'm getting a lot of clients that we're trying to get them to do mid-year review, right? Mid-year review of their business, not necessarily just their staff, but like their business. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what's working, what's not working. How do we need to change course to recalibrate the goals, because most of them are hitting way beyond goals. So now we're recalibrating what that looks like. But what's funny is when we're doing that recalibration and that exercise, it's also looking at those strengths, those weaknesses, those opportunities, threats. What do we need to leverage? And that's really what it boils down to, is leveraging those strengths, not just identifying them, but doing something with them. And I would say this for everybody in their personal development too. Do your own SWOT analysis and think about, okay, this is my career goal. I want to be here by 2025. What are the steps I need to be taking today to get there? And without that plan in front of you, I am a written plan girl, but without that in front of you, hard to know whether you're on track or not.
Well, speaking of steps, you did. You wrote the book. There are things that you need to go through or you need to visualize. We all know that, every interaction is a transaction. And I love that quote in your book, and that every request, compromise, and tug of war is you engaging in all of that. So, since you wrote the book, and this is what you do with your clients all day long, right? Where do we start? What should we do first?
So the first thing is that inventory. Second thing is really think about what it is you want to be doing. And then once you have that plan, it's about putting it in action, because the plan by itself doesn't actually matter until you start executing. So it's the execution of it that I'm more concerned about. And I have to say this, so Coach Cindy's hat on here. The plan is never going to be perfect, and it shouldn't be. It is evolving. And I find folks who are like, oh, we have to get the plan right. There's no right. It's on paper, get going. It's the plan for today. And then you can start putting it into action, because we have to find ways to get closer to those goals. And that's where it's looking for those opportunities. And that is one of the steps that I talk about in my book, is you look for the opportunity to bring you closer to it or further away from your goals. And that's the other thing is, especially when you're dealing with customers or you're, up against a brick wall in business, why do we keep going against that wall? That's a no for now. that's not your course. Back up, fail fast, go some other direction. And so I think once you have that idea of where you want to go, it's taking the first step is the first step.
Right. Well, and we have to start somewhere. And I like that you said that it's not ground in stone, because we're all different. Like for me, I need like a daily goal, a monthly goal, and a yearly goal. And then I've got some far-fetched goal too. So I have a 4-phase one. Many people don't have that. And it's not good or bad. It's just how you plan and how your plans can be effective, right? Because if you just have an hourly plan, that's okay too.
Yeah, it's totally good. I mean, I'm the to-do list girl as well. Like I'm a fan of those. But what I find with a lot of our clients, and this is probably true for folks listening in today, is we have the greatest intention of creating a plan. And we maybe do a strategic plan each year. Maybe you do a personal plan each year, but then it sits in a desk. That's not the kind of plan I'm talking about. I'm talking about a dynamic, action-oriented, what are the things I need to be accomplishing, and then doing. Like the thing that I want you guys doing after today, hopefully, is thinking about what you're doing. And a lot of times it's actually about giving yourself permission to start, especially if it's a personal goal or a personal growth thing. We tend to struggle with that. It's like, oh, I'll do that later, or I had a client a couple of years ago who wanted to go back to school, and she's like, oh, but I never have time. I'm never going to be able to do this. She owned a title agency. And I'm like, you better hope you never have time to do this, because that means your agency isn't doing well. So we need to build this in if this is important to you. So it's about saying, you know what, I'm going to let myself do this, or I'm going to do this, and just forging ahead.
I see one of the questions have come through, and I do want to remind everybody, please, put your questions in here for Dr. Cindy. But Dr. Cindy, we are so busy right now. How do we carve out time for this plan?
So it's not dissimilar to what you said about you wanted to see your family so badly that you made it work. You have to want this. It's like if you work out, you will build this into your calendar if it's important enough to you. If it's not important enough to you, what I would ask you is, why is that your goal then? If you really are not willing to carve time to get closer to it, then you're probably not that excited about that goal. So that's the inventory you need to be taking and looking and going, okay, is this really the direction I want to be headed? Because you should be excited about this. And again, like I told my client that wanted to go back to school, there's never going to be a good time in the title business to do this. And if there is, something has gone horribly wrong.
Well, and you make a good point. It is busy now. Now is the time to take advantage of this height in business, because once you do have time, then that means it's down here. So yes, you're going to be, ultimate busy when you're at these heights, but doing it when you're down here and have a lot of time, that means you have this gap of business that's happening. And, and really that's kind of like the wheel that we're constantly running on, right? We want to be able to do all of these things when it's not busy, but when it's not busy is the worst time to do it, because there's not much there to move forward on.
The old saying, make hay while the sun shines, completely applies.
Exactly. So salespeople should be out the most now. And I know it's difficult because it's all hands on deck, right? We need everybody to come in, do these closings, however we need to do them in our state to get the job done. We need our policies written. But if our salespeople, which I'm not going to even say it because I know you will, everyone should be doing that, right? So if you're not out selling and you're inside working in your business, then you're not working on your business. And, that's definitely one of our mantras.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to say it, every job is a sales job, but for those who sales is on your business card, let's say that, those are the people that should be out right now. And that's one of those other things that, remember, out doesn't mean out of the office. It might be out on a video conference call. It might be on phone calls. It might be doing some kind of a hybrid, but it is outward facing. And that's where we want them right now, is outward facing. And I mean, I would also say that all of your internal people should be focused on that outward facing piece, because you're coming in contact with more people right now. If you're a title agent and you're not marketing the other side agent, that's a problem, right? Those folks are coming through our house. Let's show them some love, little things, asking for referrals. But where you see those peaks and valleys, and this is where that 4-letter word of planning is super important. You see the peaks and valleys because we end up doing reactive things like pulling our salespeople off the market floor and bringing them inside to answer phones and file and do things, which I am not saying isn't important. But the goal is to keep a constant growth trajectory. You got to watch it where everybody's best use of their time is.
Right. Now, I know we took a lot of time talking about planning, but without that, initial step, we can't move on. So let's say, we have a plan in place, whether it be for ourselves personally or ourselves professionally. What is the next phase, or what's the next thing we need to do?
So the next thing is literally stepping into action, and that's about identifying the best opportunities to get you closer to the goal. So let's just say you have a professional goal, your own professional goal of moving up, moving into a leadership role, or if you're a leader, delegating, getting yourself out of that role. You want to look for those opportunities to get you closer to that. So a lot of the people that I coach are owners, managers, and so often it's delegating. And so what ends up happening is we have to identify who we can delegate to. What are the tasks that can be best delegated? What are the things that we could have someone else be successful at in this moment that doesn't also take 1,001 hours to coach them on, but easy delegation pieces to get those things off your plate. If you're that professional that's looking to move up, it's looking for opportunities to show your strengths. And that's why that SWOT analysis piece is so important in part of your inventory, because you want to identify those superpowers that you have so you can find ways to elevate it. So when the boss says, we need somebody to do this event and they're going to have to, do a speech, and you realize, hey, I can do that, raise your hand. But it's the motion of doing it. Because I think a lot of times we sit here and go, oh, that would be a good idea to do, but I'm too busy. You talk yourself out of it.
Right. Right. Well, and those opportunities doesn't have to be that you're trying to get up somewhere, because in most of the companies that might be listening, there is no ability to go up. It's just one level for the company.
Yeah.
So what other opportunities could there be on a more lateral level? I mean, I can think of a few, but I know you have a bunch in mind too.
So it's also about elevating your skill set and your own brand at work. And that's where the personal development piece is super important. I talk a lot about personal branding in speeches. And this is your chance to basically rebrand yourself. And if you can't, little homework assignment, if you can't tell me 5 words that you want people to remember about you when you're not in the room, you need to work on your brand, right? It's just one of those things where we want people to be able to say, oh, this person is X, Y, and Z. So that's one place to start, but it's also the way that you're recalibrating your relationship with your colleagues, your relationship with your boss, your relationship with your customers. Maybe your customers are the ones who are calling you, 10 o'clock at night because we train them that that's okay. Recalibrate that. Maybe you want to start training them that you don't answer your phone after 7 o'clock. Well, most people just gasped watching this right now because they're like, oh, I can't do that. You can.
Amazing how you can.
Yeah, but it's giving yourself permission and then it's doing it. It's actually not reaching for that phone at 10 o'clock at night. But again, we've created some of these monsters out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember one of the internal sessions that I did was regarding personal branding. And if you don't do that inventory, you can't work on your personal branding, right? So I gave them a challenge because it just wasn't resonating. I mean, you could do presentations on personal branding all day long, but unless they do the homework or, think about all the things that they need to pat themselves on the back for, right? Yeah. They're not going to be able to do it. So what I made them do, because it was funny, this particular group, everything that, the company was rolling out, they kept on saying, can we get a marketing slick for that? Another item. Can we get a marketing slick for that? Can we get a marketing one pager for that? So what I did in this next session, I said, okay, this is what we're going to do for 30 minutes. I'm not going to talk about personal branding. I want you to create a marketing slick
nice.
For yourself.
Love that.
You would not believe I can't do that. Number one, doesn't it sometimes feel a little weird when we pat ourselves on the back, or say what our strengths are, and for those that were most struggling in this breakout, I asked people across the table to say, okay, what's Dr. Cindy's strengths?
Yeah.
So if you can't think of them yourself or you don't want to put it down on paper, have somebody else tell you, because trust me, your peers are going to be honest with you.
Oh, for sure. And I love that you create your own marketing slick. That's genius. And one other thing that I have to say on that is it's not about just tooting your own horn. It's about your actions showing these words and showing your brand and living your brand. But the other thing is, remember, if you're in any sales capacity or any kind of business development, which I would, again, argue you all are, if you can't tell me why you're awesome, I can't send you referrals. So we have to own that. And if you can't tell me why you're awesome, I can't volunteer you or say, hey, to my friend, hey, this person's going to be really good for this role or really good to help out on this committee. I can't advocate for you if I don't know why you're amazing. So you got to own that first, for sure. I love that.
Oh, yeah. And you have to be confident in yourself, because if you're not confident in yourself, how can you be confident in your own personal life as well as in your business and then for the industry? So there are a couple questions, and one of them really relates to what you just talked about. What is your best tip for title agents that are saying, quote, why would I focus on sales right now? We are busier than ever. My team cannot handle anymore.
Yeah. So the struggle is real. Just honoring that. Absolutely. But there's two things to recall when you're having this conversation with somebody. Number one is, in sales, unless you have a magic wand, you're not going to go out and magically come in with 50 orders today. There are too many stars that have to align, that you have to call on the right person who happens to have a deal, that happens to be, the person has funding. Like, all of these pieces have to kind of come together. So it's not, you go out, you fish, and you bring in 50 fish. So there's a timeline that occurs, and it's usually about 60 days. When you really think about your sales timeline, and this is something you maybe want to track for your market, how long does it take from the initial outreach to the conversation to the deal? So that's the first thing, is there's a built-in phase that's going to happen. Second thing is, this is when you should be marketing and you should be selling behind the desk, because this is where you're planting those seeds to the people that maybe we don't normally come in contact with. And if you're super busy and your team is super busy, how are we then taking advantage of those leads? Like I mentioned earlier, the other side agent. You have more other side agents coming through your office right now than you're going to any other time of this year. What are we doing for them? How are we treating them? Are we welcoming them? Are we then passing the lead to your sales team to follow up on? What does that look like? Or if you're in underwriting, same thing. Like you're dealing with your clients much faster right now because they're 90 deals in a second. So what are you doing to deepen those relationships, get more business from those current clients? This is your chance. But I think what ends up happening is we put sales out of our mind because we go, that's the thing I'm going to do when I have time. That's like saying I'm going to go to the gym when I have time. That's never going to happen. And again, it's about avoiding the peaks and valleys. And that's one of the reasons that we end up with those, is because you don't work out and you keep eating brownies, something happens.
Right.
And you stop eating brownies and you start working out and then something else happens.
Is that how it works? Because I really do love brownies. I love my M&Ms. That's M&Ms got me through probably a good 15 months. I would have days that I would only eat the blue or days I would only eat the red.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So, let's say we have a plan and we're purposeful in that plan. Let's say we've looked at some opportunities and we're going to mentally and physically carve out time. What's the next thing we should do?
So you have to figure out if you're on the right track. And you want to get some feedback. That's soliciting that feedback. It's making sure we're listening to whatever's happening out there. If you guys are trying to do a bunch of virtual stuff and nobody's paying attention, that is telling you something. If you're trying to do more in-person events and nobody's showing up, that is feedback. So it's looking at that and really listening to the market, listening to each other, listening to your colleagues. If it's a personal development piece that you're working on, it's probably about soliciting feedback. Because if you're trying to kind of change your brand or show a different prowess of yours, you may need to ask for that feedback from your colleagues, from your friends, from your mentors. But I think it's about internal and external feedback is key. And so looking at what that is, but again, goes back to the plan, what you start doing, and then starting to basically keep score. Are we getting closer or further away from where we want to be?
Now, do you think we should do that as peers, or do you think that can be something that's managed and directed?
I think it's both, depending on what your goal is. So if you're working on a personal branding piece, sometimes it's easier to get feedback from a peer. Sometimes it's harder to get feedback from a peer. So I think it really goes back to what it is you're looking to do. But again, if we're not asking for that feedback, there's something missing in our plan. And it's almost like, if you keep doing the same marketing that you've done, let's talk marketing, not even sales. You keep doing the same marketing that you've done.
You're going in my lane, lady.
I know. Well, you did the marketing slick thing, which I really dig. But if you're, doing the same marketing you've done and your numbers are going down, that tells you something. There's a direct correlation, right? You can see that this isn't working. This advertising isn't working anymore. So if we don't have that from a sales capacity, because we're not tracking how many calls it takes, how many meetings we've had, how many conversations we've had, it's harder to figure that out. It's even harder when it's your own professional development, because you're sitting here thinking everybody's seeing the new me. I've recalibrated. My clients are loving it. And unless you're saying, hey, is it working for you that I'm no longer answering my phone at 10 o'clock at night? We have to find out, because that's when they're going to go somewhere else if we're not careful about it. And the recalibration, I have to say this too, the recalibration, especially with clients, is delicate. You're not going to go and recalibrate your first out of the gate is not going to be your neediest client. We're going to save them. But you start to test the waters and you ask and solicit that feedback. And you'll be surprised it can be done. And we've done it very successfully with a lot of our clients, but you have to be conscientious of it and continue to ask, is this still working for you? You guys okay? Okay, are you still getting what you need? Or when you're starting to get them to use technology differently, a lot of our clients are getting them to use technology, retraining them. You can go in and see this. You don't need to call me.
Right. Take advantage of those other resources. But isn't getting feedback in and of itself, it could be a difficult process, because sometimes, and someone had made the comment here, is that sometimes we get feedback from the wrong people.
Yeah.
So you go to, let's say, a peer to get feedback, someone in your office, but they provide you feedback of what they think the customer needs, versus going to the customer to find out what they need. So the interpretation could be completely different. It's like, me trying to assess a situation and I have kind of blinders on. I see the situation, this is happening, but then somebody's tapping me on the shoulder and says, you're actually driving the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And you're getting the wrong feedback. So how do we make sure that we stay on the right track and we're asking the right questions for that feedback? Because let's face it, if you don't get the right feedback loops, how do you establish that trust, right?
Yeah, it's true. And it is, you just said it, it's about asking the right questions, giving context for it. It's like in sales, and sorry if you guys do this, but I hate the question, what keeps you up at night? If I knew what kept me up at night, I would fix it.
Because I want to sleep.
Yeah, I would have called you already. So it's about directing the conversation towards what feedback you're looking for. It's saying, hey, we've been using this technology for a while, and I've noticed you haven't been using it. Tell me what's going on. Is it, I'd love to get your thoughts on that piece. Something along those lines versus like, hey, how do you like our tech? It's not about that. It's about asking that appropriate directional question so you get the feedback you're looking for. And like you said, the other piece is sometimes people will give you feedback whether you want it or not. It's just take what you like, leave the rest is what I say to that.
Right. Someone had asked about, you mentioned that personal SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. What is your recommendation on doing that? Is that something that, somebody should just be doing all by themselves? Or is that something that can be done in the group? What is your recommendation on your personal SWOT analysis?
So for your personal SWOT analysis, I start with just you. I absolutely think you need to sit and take that moment of going, this is what I think it is. And then I would solicit feedback. I would ask colleagues, ask your friends and family. They'll be honest with you, sometimes too honest. Brutally honest, yeah. But it always starts with you, and it's a personal SWOT because you have to sit there and go, okay, this is the way I see myself. And then that's when you actually start getting that feedback, is when you ask other people and you're like, I am so good at public speaking. And they're like, no, you're not.
So if you could break down the four components, give me an example of a strength, a weakness, your opportunity, and your threat individually.
Right. So the strength would be, and I'm just going to pull these out of the air. Let's say the strength is, and I see this all the time on these, customer service. I don't know what that means. That means nothing.
That's an expectation.
It's an expectation. Right. But it's not a strength until you can tell me what you're doing to provide that. So is it your communication? Is it your proactive communication? So let's say maybe it's proactive communication. You are doing updates with your customers. You're making sure they know what's going on. So that's a strength, right? The opportunity might be to recalibrate the way you're doing that. Maybe you've been doing phone calls or pop-in visits. Maybe it's an email. Maybe it's a video email. We love video over here, so we're doing a lot of that. So maybe it's a video email. There are other ways to do this that can still be impactful, building on that strength. And like you said, it's like build on those strengths. A weakness could be the fact that you don't know some of that technology. Maybe you're afraid of technology and you need to take some time to learn. So what's funny is from that SWOT, when you look at that weakness, maybe that goes on your plan. Maybe that's the next thing you do is, okay, I need to actually learn some of this technology, or I need to explore AI, or I need to look into texting updates or whatever it happens to be. And then threats are looking at what's around you. And for this in particular one, the way that I would look at this is a competitive threat. Who else is doing it? What else are they doing? Are we late to the game? Are we first to the game? How it's going to be perceived by the market? I would look at the inventory from that angle. But from a personal angle, you look at it as it might be a threat to your own time, that you have to take time out to start doing this training or whatever it happens to be. So those are just a couple examples. And I would tell everybody watching, Google it. There's 1,001.
Well, I appreciate that because that kind of brings us to the basics of what we're doing, right? So hopefully we have a plan. We're looking for opportunities. We listened, we established trust, we're getting feedback. What's the next step?
We need to ask for what we actually want along the way. And I think this is the hardest step. Let's say that you did recalibrate with your customer. Let's say that you've shown them the technology 10 times and you haven't asked them to use it.
Right.
Why not? Or we haven't asked them to send business or send more business or, ask them to call this person instead of that person. You're recalibrating. So, be honest with yourself of what's kept you from doing this all along. Why didn't we do this before? And then the other thing is, why are you willing to keep working this way? And this is in particular with a lot of clients where they'll say, oh, well, we have clients that split their business. They send a third, and a third. Okay, that's fine, but are you okay with that? Because you're giving a lot. You're giving a lot. Why haven't you asked for more? Oh, because I already know they give a third, a third. Somebody's gonna have to explain to me why that's okay if you're delivering more value. So it's just, what's in the way of asking? And a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose the business that I have. But I'll tell you what we hear from folks is you're not getting more because you didn't ask. So it's being brave enough. And it goes back to what I said in the first part about being brave enough to give yourself permission to ask for what you want them to do. And in this recalibration period, and especially in this hybrid sales approach, instead of talking yourself into the fact that, oh, that client's used to me going to see them in person, so I have to, why not ask them, hey, would you be open to a video conference? Would you be open to this? Ask for what you want. And I think that's one of the most often skipped steps because we're afraid of the answer.
Well, and I like that you brought up an example of a third. We're very busy. So getting a third is amazing. And we're all very grateful for that third, right? If the market goes up, we still get a third. If the market goes down, we're still getting a third. So why do you need me as a salesperson then? Because if the third is going to go up and down like the market does, maybe I'm not doing a very good job in differentiating myself from those other 2/3. Yeah. And maybe percentages are not the way to go. Maybe actual amount of orders opened, amount of orders closed, maybe that should be the, I don't want to say the goalpost, but maybe that should be the measure versus 8%. What do you think about that?
I agree. And I think that should be the conversation, because that's the other thing I hear from our clients is like, well, we get a third. And like I said, my question is, are you happy with that? Because I wouldn't be. But looking at what we're doing to differentiate ourselves, and 9 times out of 10, our client is the one that's doing more than the other 2. And they're getting the same amount. So it's about asking, it's about recalibrating and making sure they know. And here's the thing, if you're on that just, train of a third, or half and half, or whatever it is, and it's not moving, you need to ask yourself why it's not moving, because we should be delivering something that's them realizing, wait a second, this is so much better than what I have over here. And it's kind of organically coming too, if we're really paying attention. So I think that's something to examine. And now is the time to do that, by the way, because as you see, your client's business has gone up. So of course our business is going up as well. But looking at that and saying, am I still equal a third? Am I still getting whatever, we could have expected? Ask now, because they have more to spread around. So
right. But why is it so hard when you've got nothing to lose, right? If you ask, but why is it so hard for some for that ask? Do we have maybe too close of a relationship with, with our customers?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, I want to be friends with everybody, Dr. Cindy. I don't want to be anybody's just, business buddy.
I think that can be dangerous. So, and this is just my opinion, take what you like, leave the rest, because I want to be friends with people, but I want it to be, this is work, this is play. I think you have to have clear boundaries around it. Like you and I could absolutely go have a cup of coffee and just totally have girl time. But from 9 to 5, we're doing this, and making sure that your client has that clear boundary as well. But I do think you're right that a lot of times we can't ask because we're too close to them. The other excuse I get is that I'm afraid I'm going to put them in a weird position. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose what I have. They're not giving you any more or less now. So, it's probably in your head. But I do think it is the way you approach the conversation. So not to sound like a broken record, you need a plan for this conversation. You need to go in understanding what their goals are, how we're helping them, and be able to advocate for yourself in this conversation of why you deserve more. And even when you do that, I mean, y'all know this, anybody watching today, even when you do that, sometimes they're going to be like, nope, I love you all. You're all the same. But that should inform your plan of how much you're going to continue to give. You know, the ROI isn't going up. So are you still going to continue to give what you used to? It's a question you have to ask yourself.
Right. All right. So now we've got 4 things we got to do. Plan, look for those opportunities, listen, establish trust through feedback, ask for what you want, right? So what would be the next logical thing that we should do?
It's following up. Follow up. This is where even seasoned sales pros, customer service, escrow, underwriting, we fall down because we're so busy. If you have asked someone for something, it is your responsibility to follow up with them. And I think even when we're brave and we do ask, we think, oh, they know why I came by. They know why I'm here. No, you're giving them too much credit. So when you're recalibrating, you're stretching that rubber band we talked about. You're pulling that rubber band. You need to keep following up and make sure they're coming along with you. And I think, it's visibility versus value with our customers in a lot of ways. Like, you're being visible. Is that a real follow-up? Or should you be providing something different of value as your follow-up? I mean, what do you want to be known as out there? This goes back to that personal branding piece. So I think as you recalibrate and as you take your own inventory and personally, professionally, you look at this and you go, what does my feedback look like today? What does my follow-up look like after all of that has happened? And you may be surprised, as good as you all are, I know you are, that the follow-up is the part that we need to work on.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. You want to try to set yourself as being not the know-it-all in the business, but the learn-it-all in the business, both for yourself and understanding what your customer needs are. Now, there was a question, and I'm going to be very honest with you, Dr. Cindy. We can't really answer it completely, but what can F&F do locally to help my sales and marketing team? Now, that opens up another Pandora's box that we don't have time for, is what are the inherent differences between sales and marketing? The one thing I will tell the audience is that, number one, we will be providing, or we're actually editing it right now, that what are the differences between sales and marketing? And I will be on that as well as Bo Digital. But also right here, Dr. Cindy is going to be doing a podcast for F&F Unplugged, which if you haven't tuned into F&F Unplugged, you've got some making up of episodes to do. But Dr. Cindy has agreed to do one specifically on personal branding, because that, again, is, it's embedded inside of these steps or phases, and it has a mind of its own. So what do you think we both can do locally for our customers?
So I'll speak from what I know with our customers and how they're working with F&F. A lot of this is about the resources that you have for folks. I think you guys do an amazing job of doing it for them. And it's just like, hey, we have this, so that they can market themselves. So I think that's a big piece of it. But it's also your involvement with your representative at F&F. And I think that's the other thing, is they have ideas. They have, that's what I would tell you. I mean, kind of treat them like you would treat us. Treat them like your consultant. Pick their brain. These are experienced people. So that might be the first thing that I would tell you to do.
Okay. Yeah. For me, I like to say that I want to make sure that I match the right resources, with the right customer needs, because, we all have a ton of things in our toolbox, right? And I would say 75% of them your customer may not need, or want, or think they don't need. So you got to concentrate on those other 25% that you know how to do, you know how to present, or bring somebody else in to help with that. And that's something relevant that the customer is going to need. With regards to another question that we have, in your experience, Dr. Cindy, of those sales teams that you have worked with, is there one primary indicator, or maybe just a specific action taken, that a team will have success in growth?
We'll look right in the camera. Prospecting, prospecting, prospecting. The outbound reach to people who are not currently giving you business is the one thing that makes all the difference, because you can't control whether they have business to send. You can't control whether it's going to close. You can't control any of those things. What you can control as a salesperson is how many people I reach out to invite them to work with us. That's the number one thing. And I will also tell you, in seasoned sales teams, that is the number one thing that falls by the wayside, because everybody is taking care of their current customers, which, yes, is important. But from a sales team standpoint, the point of having a sales team should be new business. So prospecting. Did I say prospecting?
I think you may not have. I'll say prospecting. So let's pretend I'm a real estate agent. Oh, wait. I don't have.
Wait, you are.
But
wait a minute.
How can I stand out right now? Because realtors are vying against a very low inventory. There's 30 contracts for every house. There's all kinds of, crazy multiple offers going on. How can a realtor in this market stand out in the crowd?
So number one, listen to the podcast that we're going to do. We're literally talking about that exact thing. But it is about the way you're differentiating yourself from everybody else and the way you're telling your story in that market. Because there is a misconception, just like with title agencies and underwriters, the misconception is we have the same tools and resources. Okay, by regulation, maybe-ish, but it's the way you use them. It's the way you do this. I was coaching a realtor, this is many years ago, and I was coaching a realtor here in the Bay Area, and we were talking about her listing appointment. And she's like, oh, but I do the same binder for everyone. I'm like, and everybody knows that. So how do you customize it? How do you show your clients? And then making sure that you are creating raving fans in the market. And that's the other thing that I would say for standing out is the story that others are telling about you matters. That goes right back to your personal brand. They need to be able to say those 5 words other than, oh, Linda, she's my realtor. Yeah.
Well, there's tons of them out there, right?
Yeah.
What makes her different? And that's part of taking their inventory.
Absolutely.
What are their strengths? And those strengths change with the marketplace. Like, I used to have a strength many years ago when I was doing it full time that I literally can get a seller within $5 what their net proceeds were going to be. Now, mind you, now there's all sorts of, net sheets, and that's done automatically. So I can't hang my hat on that anymore. But what I can hang my hat on right now is that I would consider myself a master negotiator. And no computer can do that. Maybe not no algorithm, but, there is something to an art of negotiation right now. So that, you have to really think about what are your strengths. And if you feel you don't have any, maybe that's looking for those opportunities of how do I get better? Should I become maybe certified in something, a certified staging specialist on the seller's end, or some sort of certified buyer representative where you're able to, add those initials after your name, create a conversation of why that differentiates you.
Yeah. And remembering, for the realtors, you're selling yourself every single day. So while you're with a great brokerage and they have a great brand or whatever, I'm not buying from them. I'm buying from you. I want you. So making sure that brand is clear and who you want to be known as so that I can send you referrals. And I have to say it, ask for referrals from your past clients too, by the way. Like, that's one thing you don't do enough of, I'm sure.
Right. Well, none of us do because they're too busy or not focused. We have to go down the right path. So let's take that scenario now, Dr. Cindy, and let's put it into a title company.
Great.
How can a title company stand out? We all have very similar products. There's always going to be that expectation that we've got great customer service. We're here for you 24/7. How can a title company differentiate themselves from the herd?
So it's the way you tell the story. So it's not what you do, but it's how it affects your client is what we teach our clients to do. So it's not about the fact that you have 24/7 service and all those things. And by the way, I just expect that that's going to happen now because, the world that we live in, I want instant gratification. So if you're still going around saying you give good service, stop right now. Stop saying that. Talk about what that does for the client. Is it that we, make sure that you close on time? We get you your check faster. We take care of your customers so they take care of you. What is it that tells the story that all of those service things that you've been saying actually do for the client and your client's client? And granted, we're both, homeowner outreach program people, but that consumer is much more visible now. So for a title agent, are you ignoring them? That might be part of your differentiator too, is the way that you envelop them in the process and the way that you bring them in. They're going to do a Google review. They're going to do a Yelp review. They're going to tell their friends and family. So that might be another way that you stand out. But again, it's not what you do, it's how it impacts them. And that's the story that should be told.
Yeah, no, and I love that you started the whole storytelling topic. I mean, we can't go down that road, but really think about your company and what story you're telling the customers. There have been a lot of times where I look at a website, let's say, for a company, and I look on their homepage and I pretend I'm looking at that page as a realtor or a lender. I look at it and I'm thinking, okay, there's nothing here. It doesn't tell me that they've been in business for 150 years. It doesn't say that they do all this commercial work. It's a beautiful page and it's a beautiful website, but there's no compelling story to kind of bring me in, right?
Yeah. It's huge to be able to tell that story. And this is something that I would also encourage everybody that's on today. Can your staff tell this too? It's not just about you or your sales team, but can everybody tell this? Like, how do they talk about what they do at a barbecue?
Right. Or your company have a consistent message. And we don't mean value proposition,
no.
Any of that stuff. Just what you do, how you do it, and why that is amazing for where you are. And part of that's going to be selling yourself too.
100%.
Well, Dr. Cindy, we're pretty much at the top of the hour. I know we've answered a lot of questions so far. And you know us, I always feel like we could talk all day and go into like 20 different directions. But in watching your valuable time and our listeners' valuable time, what would be, some last takeaways in all of this? I mean, of course, sales is a life skill. So that's why we talked about that inventory and, us personally. But how do we kind of put a bow on our conversation today? Don't you like how I said bow?
I do. There you go. Shout out to Bow Digital again. I like it. I think that it really is about getting clear on what you want, having a plan to go get it, giving yourself permission to go after it, making a step now, looking for that opportunity and actually doing something towards it versus plan goes in a drawer. And then this is individual and company at this point. Like, this is your chance. And like I said, if you haven't started moving on this by December, that disruption that we're trying to help you take advantage of will have settled down. We want you to use the momentum of these last 16 months to be able to recalibrate and create that hybrid approach, whatever that happens to be. And you said it. I think sales is not a business skill. It's a life skill. It should have been taught in high school. So
I agree. So to kind of wrap this up, just a few little reminders. Every interaction is a transaction. I love that quote from your book. Every request, compromise, tug of war that you engage in is a transaction. You need to be positive. You need to be visible. You need to be valuable. And what does that look like for you personally? And then you could take it to your company and even to the industry, right?
Absolutely.
So Dr. Cindy, I really appreciate your time, your amazing talent. Your book right there behind you, there's a reason why it's on the bestseller list. You have a great personality, and I am proud to call you my friend and business colleague. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you in person again.
I am so excited. Thank you so much for having me today. I am honored to be a part of the F&F family of Facebook Live events. This is so cool. And thank you just so much for your time today, too. It's been a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Thank you all for attending, and this recording will be up soon. Thank you all for joining us on Zoom and on Facebook Live today. The F&F family of companies, we hope, is your preferred underwriter, and we hope to differentiate ourselves by bringing you action-packed, fun, and engaging education whenever and however we can. So thank you all.